Hey, how are y'all doing today? What an adventure we're on trying to learn how to learn online, trying to learn how to best communicate with you. Gonna have to be patient with me and some of the other teachers as we're learning the best way to conduct class for you and present lessons that'll make it engaging. Now, my lessons aren't going to take as long as I normally do because I am sitting just here by myself there at home. Well, I'm not by myself. I do have my dogs with me. And I don't have anybody asking me questions. I have a dog whining in the background or something. But so it'll go much quicker. And this first section of chapter 11 is really, really short. This is another chapter on genetics. We're going to learn about just that there are disorders that we can inherit that are recessive or dominant. We know what recessive and dominant are. We know that in order to have a recessive trait like blue eyes, you have to inherit 2 recessive alleles. And so the same is true for a recessive disorder. In order to have it, you have to have 2 recessive alleles for that disorder. In the other regard, dominant disorders, you only have to have 1 allele to have it. So you could be heterozygous or you could be homozygous dominant. And that's just really all we're going to focus about today. You need to read chapter 11, section 1 out of your book. Hopefully all of you have your textbooks at home. If not, you can drop by the school and go get it because you will definitely be needing it. And of course, you should reread over these PowerPoint notes that I'm getting ready to go through with you. So let's go ahead and look at PowerPoint. All right. So chapter 11 in biology. Section 1 is called Basic Patterns of Human Inheritance. And this is a picture of a Dr. Jared. He lived in the 1900s, and he was one of the first scientists who said, you know what? I think that some of these disorders that we are studying in the medical field are inherited. Before then, people weren't really sure what caused a disease necessarily, and there was a mystery. And he realized, in particular, a disease that he was studying, alkaptonuria, was caused by a lack of an enzyme, where the body of the person who had this disorder did not produce enough of an enzyme, and that enzyme was responsible for breaking down acid in the bloodstream. And so when you have a buildup of acid in the bloodstream, you get black urine, and that sounds really awful, doesn't it? And also your joints and your bones ache, sort of like you have arthritis. And it's all due because your body is not producing enough enzyme that breaks down acid. It's a recessive trait. And so if the individual has this particular disorder, then of course they're homozygous recessive. You may have heard the term carrier before. A carrier is a person that is normal in every sense of the word. Physically, they don't show any symptoms of a disorder. They do, however, have the recessive allele for the disorder. So they're heterozygous. They have a dominant allele for being normal and a recessive allele for a particular disorder. They can pass it on to their children, and so that's why they're called carriers. This is a diagram of a family where both parents are carriers. It's a type of pedigree. We'll look at a pedigree on the next slide. But in this diagram, we have a dad and a mom who are both carriers, and you can see the genotype underneath their drawings, capital A, lowercase a. They're heterozygous. And the possible offspring they could have A child that is homozygous dominant receives both dominant alleles from them and is normal, or they have a 50% chance of having children that are also carriers, they're heterozygous, and a 25% chance of having a child that inherits both recessive alleles and actually has the disorder. Now, there's a disorder called cystic fibrosis that's recessive, and it causes the person who has it to have a buildup of mucus in their respiratory system, and it affects their immune system. They're very susceptible to getting just like the common cold and becoming deathly ill from it. In years past, people with cystic fibrosis did not usually live much past their early 20s. Today, we have better treatment for it, and they are living longer. Some of them are getting double lung transplants, which have extended their lifespan. It's still not a curable disorder. However, gene therapy now is coming up with some treatments for it that it looks like in the near future we may be able to almost kind of cure it with what is now called gene therapy. So that's pretty exciting. Not all disorders are recessive. There are dominant genetic disorders. And like with any dominant trait, all you have to have is one allele. So you're either heterozygous or you're homozygous dominant, and you would have that particular disorder. Huntington's disease is a terrible disease that is caused by a dominant allele where you don't know you have it until you're in your like mid-30s or 40s, and you all of a sudden begin having symptoms that it degrades your nervous and your muscular system. It is lethal, and it's a long-suffering disorder. It's very very unpleasant and very debilitating. A pedigree, this is similar to what you just saw on the other slide, is a diagram that we can use to trace within a family how something's being inherited. It could be something simple as blue eyes or brown hair. But for most scientists or geneticists, they use a pedigree to trace the inheritance of a disorder. The square represents a male on a pedigree. A circle represents a female. Individuals that have whatever we're looking for are shaded in completely. Sometimes they will shade in a square or a circle halfway to indicate a carrier, like you saw the little people diagrams on the other slide, half shaded in. So I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit here. We've got 3 generations. If you look out to the left, we've got Roman numeral 1, first generation, Roman numeral 2, second generation, and Roman numeral 3, the third generation. And it says that this is a family that has a disorder, and the first generation, the dad has it. He's completely shaded in. And then the second generation, we have 3 individuals that have it and 3 in the third. Now, when I look at these 2 people, that comes down indicating they have children. Come over here, the line connects to their child or children. So this is a son who has it. This circle next to him, there's no line connecting her. She is his wife. So that lets you know she's his wife, but she's not their daughter. And so she's normal, and she marries this son who has it, and they have 2 children, a daughter who has it and a son who's normal. Here's a son that's normal. He marries a normal wife, and they have 3 normal children. This number 5 individual is a daughter who has it. She doesn't marry anyone, has no children. Number 6 is a normal daughter who doesn't marry. Number 8 is a daughter who actually has the disorder, marries this individual number 7, and he's normal, and they have 4 children. They have a son and a daughter that have it, and a son and a daughter that don't have it. So that is an example of a pedigree. On page 297 and 298 in your book, those are the pages where I want you to read over the disorders and the descriptions of them, be able to know them well enough that you could recognize them and match them up, if you were tested on them. I don't have a handout uploaded for them yet. I may or may not upload a handout onto Schoology, but I do want you to be able to know them well enough that if I gave a description of Tay-Sachs disease, that's a recessive disorder that is found in infants of the Jewish population and results in devastating effect on their brain and nervous system, and they usually don't live very long. That if you read that description, you would be able to recognize it as Tay-Sachs. And so read over those disorders and make sure that you know them well enough that you could recognize them if you read the description. That is the end of the section 1 notes. Hold on, let's see if I can get one of my German Shepherds to come over here. Duke. Come here, Duke. Come here and make a guest appearance. Duke is my 2-year-old shepherd. Hey, come here, come here. Yeah. There we go. There's Duke. Duke, look up here. That's Duke. Maybe next time I'll get a better view of him. Y'all have a good day and enjoy your online learning. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.